in writing historical fiction, and particularly in writing historical fiction that's about Iran, I have to be very accurate. So I did not make up any historical events. I did not make up any political events because I knew I would be fact checked, which I was. I was fact checked not just by, my parents in many cases, but also by Simon and Schuster's fact checking system.
Right.
We were very careful because I personally, I don't want to make up a historical event that did not exist
Yeah.
for the purposes of my story. So everything I write about that's historical happened. Ellie and Homa I made up, their friendship I made up, their families I made up, but the women's march that happened in Iran in March 1979, I did not make up. Thousands of women did march in the streets for days on end because they were worried about what may come. And so, the revolution, the war, all those things are historically accurate and fact checked. Now, here's what I think about the balance. I think if you want to read a history book, you're going to read a history book. There are many history books, excellent history books about what happened in any country. If you're reading fiction, I think that reader wants a story. They're there for the story and for the characters. So, personally, as a writer, I like the historical events to serve as a background
Mm-hmm.
and for the relationship between the characters to serve as the foreground. So it's like in a classic painting where you have the foreground and you have the background. And sometimes what's happening with the characters is in harmony with the background. And sometimes what's happening with the characters is in disharmony with what's happening politically or historically. And that's the tension that is actually, real life. So that's the balance I strike because I always think back to what E.L. Doctorow said. And if I may name drop at this moment, he was my
Yeah.
professor in my
Oh,
creative writing. Yes, yes.
wow.
Yeah, I'm very
That's
proud of
amazing.
this.
Where was that at?
Yeah,
NYU?
that was at NYU's
Wow.
MFA program. He was my creative writing
Gosh.
professor. And he said, and he's known, this is one of his favorite quotes, that history shows us what happened, but fiction shows us how what happened made people feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so much more interested in that. I'm so much more interested in the people than I am in, like, okay, in blah blah blah, this happened. Like I want to know, wait a second, how did that make the people feel? How did that affect a friendship? How did that affect a romance? How did that affect a parent child relationship? That kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And for that, did you go into your imagination?
Yes, I did go into my imagination. So when you're writing about the feelings of these people that exist only in your mind and who are living in a time and place where you were not alive, right? And you weren't there,
Mm-hmm.
much to,
Mm-hmm.
I know some people think I was, but you use your imagination. But one thing that happens, and this is why I'm very fascinated by the writing process, is that once you get into the flow of the story, the characters take over. And so it's not like I have to work all that hard once I'm in the flow. Before
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the flow, it is not that much fun. I won't lie, because it's a struggle. But once you're in the flow of the story, I didn't really have to think too hard about what does Homa feel right now. Homa let me know what she felt,
Mm-hmm.
as only she would. And I didn't have to sit there and say, I wonder how what Ellie's mother said makes Ellie feel. Ellie made it crystal clear. I mean, how could I not know? You borrow from an emotional well that's within you,
Mm-hmm.
from
Mm-hmm.
similar experiences you may have had, but you also access an emotional well that's not within you, but that's within our humanistic emotional
Mm-hmm.
well, if you know what I mean. it's there. It's in the river that exists for all of us. It's just that you have to access it. So sometimes when people say, "Oh, this must have happened to you," there's some traumatic events in the book. And I say, "No, thankfully, that did not happen to me." But as a writer, isn't that what you're supposed to do? I'm able to hopefully go into someone else's soul and say, well, what would that have felt like if it had happened to me?
Mm. It sounds a lot like acting, the
It's
Stanislavski method of acting.
it's so much like acting, the method acting.
You method acting, exactly.
Yeah. So, there are some weird things you end up doing. In my first book, the two characters fell in love by standing on opposite sides of a tree because they couldn't be seen together in person. Long story. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, yes, did I spend time with my back up against a tree, literally
Oh.
feeling the bark? I did. Because how else could I describe it? And I made my husband stand on the other
Oh,
side.
wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, talk to me. Be like, what am I supposed to say? And I'd say, listen, I need to know if I can hear you, depending on the width of the tree trunk.